There's one place for the newest drops in wellness and performance, and the biggest sale of the year. It's The Drop by GNC, curating the best of what's new, handpicked by the pros who know what works. And right now, get it all, buy one, get one 50% off during the semi-annual Live Well sale. From crushing workouts to leveling up your nutrition and everything in between, get the best deals on the latest innovations. All the newness is all on sale right now during the Live Well sale on The Drop by GNC.
What does it mean to live a rich life? It means brave first leaps, tearful goodbyes, and everything in between. With over 100 years' experience navigating the ups and downs of the market and of life, your Edward Jones financial advisor will be there to help you move ahead with confidence. Because with all you've done to find your rich, we'll do all we can to help you keep enjoying it. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome to Aran Island This, a podcast series where we talk to Irish people from different walks of life as they reflect on their own journeys. Join me, Russell McDermott, as we explore the many aspects of Irishness and what it means to each of our guests through life's ups and downs. Kevin Kilbane, welcome to Aran Island This.
What a pleasure it is, Rossa, to be on with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Finally. And the first question...
That's right.
And the first trick question, have you been to Aran Island? Did you fly? Did you ferry? What's your story?
No, I have never been to the Aran Islands. Whenever we went back to Ireland, it would always be on the ferry. But that was to the mainland, as you'd well know. But I have family in Connemara, so as close as I've been to you would be to Lettermore. The last time I was there was while my dad was alive. So my dad and I paid a visit to Lettermore probably 10 years, it'll be over 10 years ago at this stage now, yeah. So I haven't been for a good while, but that's as close as I've been. And the Irishness obviously was big since you were a kid, was it, in your family? Well, yeah, I mean, I think the way I would see it, I'm kind of always defined by my accent. My accent probably goes before me. I'm Irish. That's the way I am, you know. It's just I don't have an Irish accent. That's essentially it. And I think there's many people of my generation, second generation Irish people that were born in England, 70s and 80s, like myself, that feel exactly as I do, but we're categorized, or we're looked upon for our accent alone. And you know, as I said, it's just I'm Irish, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Does that irritate you over the years?
It used to, yeah, absolutely.
Because I know when the lads first came here, they were like the Andes, the boys. They had the accent issue, and sometimes you felt there was a bit of pushback unfairly.
I think there was pushback against UK British-born players that wore the jersey. Absolutely. It used to wind me up probably more than most because, as I said, I'm Irish. There was very few, I feel, that played in the jersey over the years that would consider themselves Irish first and foremost. You know, in top of my head, David Connolly would be one, Gary Breen would be another, maybe Rory Delap, Alan McLaughlin, Alan Kelly. But outside that, there was very few that would say I'm Irish before actually wearing the jersey I'm meaning. So to me, it was there was nothing else in my head. I'm Irish, so what else am I going to do when I was called up for Ireland? That was it. I'm Irish, so there's no other choice for me. There was never a choice for me. But in answer to that, it would have wound me up. Yeah, it used to wind me up absolutely a lot more than it does. And I think when I was younger, I could never express myself the way that I could probably express myself now. Clearly now I would state I'm Irish, whereas in the past I would probably shy away from saying I'm Irish to an extent because of my accent. And many people would say that my accent defines me and defines a person, whereas I feel the total opposite of that.
Yeah. And were you from a large family?
Yeah, large Irish family, yeah, absolutely.
And where do you stand in the pecking order then?
Oh, well, between us at home, I'm talking about my mum and dad had lots of brothers and sisters, but lots and lots of cousins. I'm a middle child.
All right.
My brother Farrell, my dad was called Patrick Farrell, and he always used to tell the story, my dad, when he moved to England, being called Patrick Farrell, he used to be obviously over in England, he was just called Paddy or Thick Paddy or whatever it would be. Yeah. So he then decided, look, I'm not going to be called Paddy anymore. I'm going to be called Farrell. So I think he was known before he moved away from Ackle. He was always known as Patrick Farrell. That's how he was known. But when he moved to England, he was just known as Farrell. So my brother was then christened Farrell Kilbane, obviously Farrell Noel. So he got my dad's name, and that was pretty much it. Yeah. So I'm a middle child. My sister, who's a couple of years younger than me, we kind of fell fairly in order. My brother's two just over 2 years. And there's probably 22 months between my sister and I. So we, my mother and father planned it out quite well, yeah.
Yeah. And, your passport now describes you what? A media person, ex-footballer? How do you describe yourself? A pundit?
Yeah, broadcaster. Well, I don't even know.
Extraordinaire broadcaster.
Yeah, hardly, Ross. I don't know. I honestly it's such a strange one, isn't it? When you look at it. Again, it comes down to how you're being defined. I'm probably still defined now to an extent as Kevin Phillips, the footballer, aren't I? That's pretty much, and you've got to take that on the chin. But look, I'm a father and a husband, and primarily that's, if I can be good at those things, I'm quite happy. But that's how I'd see myself, really. I don't necessarily see myself as anything special, and if I was anything, or if I did think of myself as anything special, the people around me would be quick to slap me down or shoot me down. That's how it is being Irish. We know who we are, and
and if we forget, we're reminded.
Exactly. Never get notions of yourself. And I've never felt that way, to be honest with you. So, if there's people that's ever been around me that have notions, I'd probably be the first person to tell them, just to calm themselves down and stop with your carry on a little bit, really. So, I'm proud of who I am. And I think as I've got older, Rosser, I think, as I said before, being able to express myself even more and having more of a knowledge of actually who I am, because it's something within me that I've probably had a little bit of turmoil with, to an extent, of who I am. Again, going back to the accent scenario, as I said, I've grown up a lot now, and I'm quite happy of who I am. Whether people see me as a footballer, a broadcaster, a pundit, it's kind of irrelevant, really. You've got to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day when you're brushing your teeth, and if you're happy, then you're happy.
Yeah, well, we all become more comfortable in our skin as we move along the timeline of life. But also, you've lived Irishness in England and in Canada, and every place is not exactly the same. You know what I mean? So I've done that. I've spent 30 years abroad in the States, in Germany, in the UK. And your Irishness kind of varies a bit chameleon-like, depending on those environments. Because when I lived in the UK in the 80s, it was not cool to be Irish at all.
No, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why so many of us that were born, as I said before, in the 70s and 80s, have that little, or had to an extent, a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. Yeah. The media outlets and the constant message that was being brought to us was these terrible people over in Ireland that's trying to ruin us as English, as British people. Don't trust them. They're stupid people. They're all drunks. They're all louts. They're all this. And that was the message that was being filtered back to us, again, as this second generation. So we did kind of rebel against it.
Well, it was offensive in a way. We didn't realise what it was, but it kind of annoyed you.
It was. Yeah, but it annoyed me when I was 7 or 8 years of age. Honest to God, it really annoyed me. And the stories that my father later in life used to tell me, my dad went over to England like many Irish persons. He went over, he worked on the roads, he was a labourer, digging gas pipes, working for gas boards and working for various companies along the way. And my dad and his gang, as they used to call it in those days, my dad would have had a gang of guys with him.
Yeah.
At times, they would have been dragged away from work by the police and accused of various things. And so you can only imagine the tension that was created within Irish communities. I always remember another thing my dad would have always told me, that outside going to predominantly Irish pubs or pubs that Irish people would have gone to, my dad would have gone to a club that was in Preston called the Caribbean Club.
Yeah.
Because he felt that there was no prejudice towards him if he went to obviously a predominantly black pub, because they just get on with it and they could just chat, and maybe had a common hatred or a common prejudice, I suppose. I always remember Dad used to say that to me. But when I was younger, I didn't really take that on board as much. It's only again when you get older and you realise the prejudice towards Irish people living in the UK, particularly through the 70s and 80s. And my brother and I experienced it. I think that, look, I think, as I said before about maybe being defined by my accent, I think a lot of people in Ireland, certainly at government level, forgot about the Irish people that moved away. Absolutely forgot about them. It was almost as if you're not our problem now. You go and do your own thing to an extent. And I really felt, as I said, growing up, that Irishness within me from my mother and father. My mum's from Longford, my dad's from Achill,
Yeah.
But that Irishness, it always rammed down my throat like many, expected. I'm just Irish. That's pretty much how it was. And I think that little bit of a chip that was on my shoulder, and all my friends growing up were of parents from Galway, from wherever, from Roscommon, from Limerick or wherever, that was who we were. We all went to Catholic school. Half the school was probably Catholic, for Irish or from Irish mother and fathers. So we had a common feeling. Everyone felt the same. We were Irish, but we were defined again by our accent and maybe where we were brought up. And that was something that we felt a lot when we were growing up. Yeah, absolutely did.
Yeah, I can relate to the short time I was in the UK, the same thing. And growing up in Preston then, your ambition was always to be a footballer? Was it a dream? Where did that come from, Kev?
My dad was a Liverpool fan, actually, and I hold that.
Nothing wrong with that now, Kev. There's nothing wrong with that.
I held it against him right from the day he died.
You toffee-nosed chap.
Yeah. My brother's a Liverpool fan. My brother grew up a Liverpool fan. And believe it or not, do you remember you used to get those mugs as a kid for Easter? You used to get mugs as a kid for Easter. So there was like 3 or 4 teams you could get. So you'd have Liverpool, Everton, Man United, Nottingham Forest, obviously in those days. They were a big side after winning European Cups and things like that. So there's only 3 or 4 mugs you could get. My brother had a Liverpool mug. And I was about 3 or 4, and my brother wouldn't let me get a Liverpool mug. I got a Liverpool mug. You've got to support. And I ended up getting a Man United mug. I think it was my mom got it for me. And I didn't support Man United, that's the truth. But I like Man United because Paul McGrath, Frank Stapleton, and Kevin Moore and Norman Whiteside, they had Irish players. There's an Irish connection there for me. So I kind of liked Man United when I was a kid. But as I got older, I just became a Celtic fan. That was pretty much how it went. And I was quite happy being a Celtic fan and staying away from the United Liverpool, order, I suppose, Yeah,
the real world order, Liverpool.
Yeah, that's right. But I always remember, my granddad died when I was about 4, but it was always something that was said to me. My granddad and my father on my mother's side, so it was my dad's father-in-law, used to argue. My dad and his father-in-law used to argue constantly about who the greatest ever player was. My dad always said George Best. And even as a Liverpool fan, that probably would have hurt him saying it, but I always said George Best, the greatest player ever was. My granddad used to say Pelé. So they used to have this argument. And I was always told about this argument that they used to have. Best was better than Pelé. He could do this, he could do that, or whatever it would be. So it probably did come from my dad. My mother was a big soccer fan when she moved over to England as well. Obviously, there's a huge GAA background. My dad's a Mayo man. So, I grew up supporting Mayo to an extent, but it was always within us. My brother started playing and we were just out on the street. Football, obviously, growing up in England was huge. There was kids from everywhere. There was Scottish kids where I grew up. It was a real melting pot of nations. I suppose the majority or a lot of the people around us were Irish, but we were out on the street constantly. So when I was even 3 and 4 years of age, I was just out on the street playing with older kids.
Isn't it amazing when you say that? Nowadays, that would be health and safety, unbelievably dangerous. But that's how we lived. You're outside kicking a ball, whether you're good, bad or indifferent. That's where we were with the lads.
Exactly. It was, and you wouldn't change it, would you, Ross? No. That was it. You wouldn't change it for the world. We realise now how blessed we were in that time that we were able to do that and we could just go out and play. But I was just going to say there, Ross, as well, when people always ask you who's the greatest influence on your career and things like that. And I was lucky that I worked at 14 and 15 with Sam Allardyce. He worked within the youth department at Preston North End. So he was a big influence on me. He was. But when you think about it, it is my brother. My brother was a talented footballer, soccer player in his own right. And he was the biggest influence on my life when I look at it, or biggest influence on my career, because I was always trying to get to his level. And he was a couple of years older, as I said, so he was physically stronger, he was quicker, he was better than me. So I was always trying to get to that level. So ultimately, my brother was the biggest influence, and playing out on the street was the biggest influence on me. It helped toughen me up, first of all. It helped hone my skills. It helped me become, able to work in confined spaces when you're on the ball and things like that, with the amount of kids that were on the fields around us or on the roads around us. So yeah, it was great times, amazing times. And as I said before, Ross, I can't even tell you how blessed I feel now that I have got what the generations now after us will never be able to get back. Yeah,
life has changed that way. And how you picked up then, Kevin? You were spotted and given trial, what kind of way?
Yeah, school teacher. I started when I reached about 7, I think I was. I wasn't really eligible. You weren't eligible really for the school football team till you were 9, so you could play 2 years above your level. But me and another lad, in our class when we hit the junior years over in England, our teacher spotted us that we were quite good. So we were playing under 11 football when we were 7. So we were playing 4 years above our level for the school team initially.
Were you big enough to stand your own ground, were you?
Yeah, I mean, I always remember when I first started playing, you're obviously sub. You're sub because you're so far behind physically. But when I used to get on, you'd obviously make an impact in the game or try to make an impact in the game. You weren't really feeling it in those days. You were just enjoying the game and things like that. So as I progressed through school, our teacher, Mr. Aspinall, he used to look after the ball boys at Preston North End. So he got me and Chris, as it was, the friend of mine who we were in the same class together, who were both quite good for our age. We then became ball boys at Preston North End. Wow. Then as we reached 9 and 10, we were selected for the Preston schools team. So we were playing a year above our age group for the Preston schools. So we had 2 years at Preston schools, and then at 10 years of age, I was picked up by Preston North End. So I went into at the time, what it was called the School of Excellence system. So I worked with now the academy, obviously how it's structured. And I then was playing for Preston until I signed schoolboy forms at 14. And so that's how it was. It went from being 7 within the school system. Look, I grew up, I'd say 150 metres from Preston North End's ground from Deepdale. So I was very lucky that I had Deepdale on my doorstep there as well. That was giving me an influence and a love of the game. And my school teacher who obviously pushed us in a certain direction. So I got into Preston North End's academy very early.
And who else went there? Mark Lawrenson was Preston North End, was he?
Mark Lawrenson. There was a few Irish. Alan Kelly would be another one. Alan Kelly's obviously father. Alan Kelly Senior played for Ireland.
That's right.
From Bray, obviously from Bray, Alan Senior. So Alan grew up from me, and I became good friends with Alan when we both played together. It was great actually because we both went to the same primary school. Alan and I. Alan went to St Gregory's. I grew up on the same street that Tom Finney, the famous English footballer, grew up. He grew up on the same street as me. Within a stone throw, you could see Deepdale. You could see the floodlights from my house when I went out the front door. And Alan Kelly and I went to the same primary school. So Alan went to a different high school than me. But, we followed each other's path off the back of, as you say, Mark Lawrenson came then, obviously went on to play for us. I looked up to Alan. Alan was a real hero of mine when I was a kid, when I was a ball boy, actually. He was only 17 or 18 when he broke into Preston's first team. And I was a ball boy watching him develop before he moved to Sheffield United and then became a regular within the Irish squad. So Alan was a huge influence on me, actually, because of where he was from. And to share the same pitch of him as him, 2 boys from Preston who both considered themselves Irish, going on to play in the national team, in the Irish national team together, growing up in England. It's a remarkable story when you think about it like that.
But the feeling of being Irish was enough to turn down the opportunity of the under-18 cap for England?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned Sam Allardyce there because I always remember when I first got into the Irish squad, I was asked, it's the first question you get asked.
The media, they love these things.
How Irish are you? Where's your mum from? Where's your granny from? Where's and whatever it would be. And I remember, obviously, again, I couldn't express myself fully at the time, but I just remember dropping the story. Well, I was called up for England and I'm not English, so whatever. And I think it took them by surprise when I first said it to the journals. Over there, what do you mean you were called up for? I was called up at youth level for England, and I turned it down because I'm not English. I was never going to play for them. And then I told the story as time went on about Sam Allardyce, Sam made this speech about we just won the league, the youth league with Preston, and Sam cracked the champagne open. And he said, look, lads, I've got something else to celebrate. After we cracked the champagne open, great season, lads, well done. I've just got something else. This is the proudest day of my coaching career. One of my boys who I've brought through the system here at Preston. I've known him since he was 14. He's now been called up for England, and I can't tell you this, the proudest day of my life, proudest day of my coaching career. He gave everybody this big long spiel, and everyone was looking around the dressing room like,
who is it?
Who is it? Whatever it would be. Never dreaming it would be me, obviously, because I'm not English, and it was never even thought of. Kev, my boy, Killer, as he said, Killer, my boy, I love you. This is the proudest thing. Congratulations. And I remember, even at the time, I was sinking on the little bench in the dressing room. I was just sinking, thinking, geez, how am I going to tell him this? What am I going to say here? Am I going to tell him that I'm not going? But anyway, I plucked up the courage the next day to go and see him. And it wasn't a comfortable conversation, let me tell you, Rosser.
Yeah, and you still talk to him?
Yeah, I did. All the years after. He laughed about it afterwards when he was Bolton manager when I was playing. I think it was at the time, I think it was actually at West Brom. I was at West Brom when I played against Bolton when they were in the Championship. And he laughed about it with me when he spoke to me. A great story about, obviously it was just the way that I was. And he actually, believe it or not, after that, because he was manager of Limerick City before he came over to Preston. He played at Preston. Then he went back to Preston. He was player manager not long after that. And then he went back to the youth team role where he brought me through fully then from there. But Big Sam always told me afterwards, look, Mick McCarthy got the job not long after we had this conversation, 96, just after Jack left. And I told Mick, this guy, he's Irish, he wants to play for you. Believe it or not, I can't believe it, Mick, but he wants to play for you. I think that was the extent of the conversation. And I was called up to the under-21s for Mick McCarthy's first game against Russia. So, yeah, it worked out very well for me in the end, and I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah. So at this stage, football was your life, was going to be your life, and being Irish footballer was clearly the map.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was.
And when you came in, you were at the late 9. When you came in, some of the older boys were moving on, and the new generation of players were coming through. So by the time you were full time, the 2002 World Cup, you were a regular, weren't you?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I am. I had that spell of the 66 consecutive starts between 99. It took me 2 years, and I accept.
Don't play it down. I mean, if you can beat Billy Wright's record, ain't no small feat there, Kevin.
Well, I do believe it. I keep saying this. I've told the guys already. I do believe it's a world record because it's qualified. It's qualifying games. Yeah. So Billy Wright's was friendlies and everything because the game was different then, obviously. Yeah. But I do believe it is a world record. But no one's actually confirmed that to me. So I can't even. I don't even know where to go on that one. But I was going to say though, I got into the under-21s, I think 95, 96 when I was at Preston, that we were actually League 2, the old Division 3 at the time, bottom league, the bottom professional league in England. We then got promoted. I continued to play in the 21s and I was called up for the senior team in 1997, just before I moved to West Brom. I was still a Preston North End player and Mick called me. I was in the middle of a move actually, but I was still a Preston North End player. Mick called me at home. I didn't have a mobile phone then. Yeah. The home phone went and it was Mick McCarthy on the phone. He says, Kevin, it's Mick McCarthy. Look, we've been impressed watching you for Preston and watching you playing under 21s. We're calling you up for the game. I think it was Liechtenstein, 97, the summer of 97. And I just had surgery. Mick didn't know. I just had surgery on a groin injury, so I wasn't able to to go over and play. So I would have been a League One player now in the Irish setup, but it didn't work out. And I was called in then fully, and I made my debut a couple of months later in September 97 when I was a West Bromwich Albion player. Yeah. But what I was going to say though, you were talking about the players that were in the squad. I remember getting in the squad and Ray Houghton was in the squad. Tony Cascarino, you mentioned the guys before, Andy Townsend, John Aldridge. Yeah. I was so in awe of these players. Roy Keane was in at that time. Dennis Irwin. Who else would we have had there as well? Steve Staunton was there. Was another one. Yeah. The people that were around that team, legends, pure icons for Irish football. But for my generation, they were gods. And then we had Mick McCarthy, who was the captain, who was the manager of the team, thrown in Packy Bonner, who was the goalkeeper coach. I was taken aback when I first got in. Thinking back, I was ready to play, but maybe mentally I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared to be around these people, and I didn't feel like I belonged, really feel like I didn't belong around these people. And then I got to know them all over the years, which was great from my point of view. And Andy came to West Brom, a while after that when he left Aston Villa. Yeah. So Andy was a teammate of mine at club level. Obviously, I became a teammate of Niall Quinn at Sunderland not long after that as well. It was just, it was great times for me, but it did take me 2 or 3 years. And I'm talking in training. I was nervous in training every day being around these guys.
That's only natural. I mean, you moved into an icon in your head and you're trying hard to do your best, and that's only life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true, Ross. It absolutely is true. If I'd have been around them more over a longer period of time, there would have been no issues then. Yeah. But Mick was having to develop a new squad.
That's right.
So 99, 2000, after we missed out after the Turkey playoff in 99 and we missed Euro 2000, we went away to America. And that was probably the makings of our team. Obviously, Robbie Keane had just come into the squad. Damien Duff was then brought into the squad. Richard Dunn, Gary Breen was developing. Shay Given, myself, Ian Hart,
Gary Kelly.
Yeah, Gary Kelly. All these players then were developing. I think Gary Kelly was around under Jack, though, wasn't he?
He was kind of in and out,
players,
yeah.
Yeah, all these players then who were kind of my generation of players, and Kenny Cunningham was another one as well. We were all obviously off the back. They were all playing 21s under Jack, but Mick then brought them into the fold and brought them into the senior side. There were so many of us that all came through together. David Conley, another. I'm trying to think of names as I'm going here, but all these players, we were able to grow together. We were able to make mistakes together. But the one thing that I even look back on now, we were such a good team. Like we had so much individual talent off the back. Plus we had Stan, Niall Quinn, Alan Kelly, these players that were around under Jack that were able to help us grow and really bring us through a little bit, aside of Mick McCarthy's guidance. But all these players that were part of, Euro 88, Italian 90, 94, the World Cup in 94, all these players were still a part of that. And then, of course, we had Roy Keane, who was the game changer for us. So we had so much talent, but we also had a lot about us. There was a lot about that team.
What happened, from the outside as spectators looking on that era, a level of self-belief had got into that group of players and was passed on to you guys that things could happen, which didn't. When the boys arrived with Jack first, they couldn't happen, and Jack made them, whether it was the up and under ball, made it happen, and I was there in Giant Stadium, and that day was unbelievable.
Yeah.
We'd kind of crossed the Rubicon. Things could be done.
Yeah, I remember watching that at home as well. Yeah, I think, you can't underestimate the influence that Jack had on us as well, on our generation, because we watched that team. Look, I know there's so much said around the football that was being played, but as kids, as 10 and 11...
Kevin, it worked. You could bore you to death. Maybe it was very practical, pragmatic, efficient, and it rendered results, and people accepted that.
And they also had the talent as well.
Yeah, and the talent was there,
that style with the talent, absolutely. As kids, as I said, 10 and 11, Rossa, we didn't really understand tactics. We were just seeing a winning Ireland team. We were seeing an Ireland team front and centre.
You weren't worried about the diamond of the 4-4-2 or playing in the box.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We were seeing a winning team. We were seeing a team that was competing with the very best, the best nations. Anyone that came to Dublin, we felt we were going to beat them no matter who it was. Yeah. And wherever we went, we felt like we could get a result. And obviously that came off the back then of qualifying for World Cups and having real success. It had a huge influence on my generation of players. So when Breeny and Shea Given, myself, Harty, Robbie Keane, Damien Duff, all these players, when we went into the squad then, as you said, we had that self-belief from the players in the generation before us that were helping us. So it was an amazing transition for us, an amazing transition, and one that you look back on and you do feel blessed that we had that,
Yeah. Is resilience something you have or you believe exists, or is resilience just dealing with the stuff that comes up in front of you? And you've got that depth of strength to keep going?
It's a great question, isn't it? How do you define it? That's the thing. I believe, yes, absolutely. My Irishness defines me in so many ways, but it gives me the resilience. Absolutely does. I think it's helped me, because let's be honest, 99.99999% of footballers are never ever going to be winning Premier Leagues, winning Champions League, winning World Cups. We are going to have to survive for long spells. We have to survive. And you're going to lose more than you win. And when you lose more than you win, you constantly have this thing about you that you've just got to get through it. And you've just got to... My mentality always was, I'll just get on with it. Just get on with it constantly. Maybe that's my motto of life, I suppose, as well. Just get on with it. So for all the knocks that I took, everything that I took along the way, I just got on with it. And I just was able to brush it aside, no matter whether I was taking stick from supporters, whether I was taking stick from teammates, opposition players, even managers and coaches. You've got to show a sense of character or a lot of character to get on with it.
But you think it's an Irish thing that you've learned to live with and use and lean on?
Yes, I think that. Again, look, many people from many different nations and nationalities will feel as though that they've got that. Whether it's my Irishness, whether it's my stubbornness within being Irishness or what, I don't know. But I do feel as though the amount of setbacks that I've had.
So you've had moments where you really have felt that that's come to help you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely has. Yeah, many times. When you're a kid, Like when you turn pro in professional sport, whatever athlete you are, whatever sport you're doing, when you turn pro or you're starting to play competitively, as I said before, you are absolutely, undoubtedly gonna have bad days. You're gonna lose, and a majority of the time, you're either just getting on with it or you're going to suffer. And it's how you deal with that suffering that gets you through day-to-day life. And that's the way that it is, because you take it home with you after a bad defeat. You take it home with you. And you do become very much in a bubble, which is something I've been quite happy since leaving the game, Ross, that I'm not in that bubble anymore. I'm not necessarily, have those feelings. You miss them. I miss playing, absolutely doing. I miss that team environment.
But you're not one of these guys who misses that. You've moved on.
I have moved on, absolutely moved on, yeah. And I'm happy for moving on. After I finished and I started to do my coaching badges and I completed my coaching badges, I realised that that's not the path that I wanted to take for me as a person. I didn't want to go down that path. I didn't feel as though the game was going to define me. So we're going back to how you've been defined on your passport and what you're calling yourself. I didn't want that. I felt as though the game was changing in a way that I wasn't necessarily appreciating. And I feel as though I am probably better and more of a solid and a rounder individual by stepping away from the game the way that I did.
How did you deal with the downs? Was it after your first cap that you had a nightmare when you beat yourself up for weeks after it?
Yeah. Yeah, it took me 6 months to get over it.
6 months?
It took me 6 months. It's an easy 6 months. I went back to West Brom. I was distraught because it was everything to me.
Yeah.
The two biggest things professionally in my career was playing at Drogheda United for Ireland against Russia, my first under-21 cap, and then playing against Iceland. The biggest is obviously Iceland, playing for Ireland away. I got the start, and that Iceland game had a huge effect on me. Short term, absolutely, and it probably affected me throughout my career. I think it probably...
The hustle doesn't have to hurt. If performance pressure is making it hard to breathe, Grow Therapy helps you navigate stress, set boundaries, and actually feel like yourself again. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/start now to get started. That's growtherapy.com/start now. growtherapy.com/start now. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Every idea starts with a problem. Warby Parker's was simple. Glasses are too expensive. So they set out to change that. By designing glasses in-house and selling directly to customers, they're able to offer prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Warby Parker glasses are made from premium materials like impact-resistant polycarbonate and custom acetate. And they start at just $95, including prescription lenses. Get glasses made from the good stuff. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you.
I think I changed my game because of it as well, believe it or not, Ross. I honestly did. I always played with such freedom. I was a player that every manager tell me, stay wide, get the ball, do your thing. If it doesn't work out for you, don't worry about it. You're fine. And, you're always in the team. And I knew if I was going to be an international footballer after that you could not do that. I couldn't stay wide. I couldn't get on the ball. I couldn't just, have a 5-minute spell in a game, which you might influence the game. You might put a cross in that someone scores, or you might score a goal yourself. I had to change my game rapidly. I knew it in my head. I had to change everything, and I had to work harder. I had to become more of a team player. And if I was going to survive certainly at elite level football, at top level football, I had to change everything. And I was so distraught. As I said, I was so distraught because it went so bad for me, and everybody questioned my inclusion. Everyone's questioned Mick for picking me for that game because I was only 20.
Was that real or imagined, Kevin? Was that real criticism, or was just your own voices in your head saying?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both. I know Mick was questioned, and I remember seeing and reading things afterwards that I wasn't ready. Things written down. This guy wasn't ready. He wasn't prepared to play. You know, he was too young. I didn't have the knowledge and I didn't have the wisdom, I suppose you would say, to realise it would make me a better player in the long term. In the short term, you're distraught. Yeah. Just going back to that one, it probably wasn't as real as I made it out to be. No, it was more in my own head because I'd had a bad game and I was substituted at half time, that it was the worst moment of my entire life. And I always remember I was sat in the dressing room at half time in that Iceland game, and Johnny Fallon, who's one of my best friends, probably my best friend now, Johnny. Yeah. Johnny sat with me and he said, "You'll be grand. Don't worry about it. You're fine. You'll be fine." And I just couldn't even talk.
Yeah, Johnny, leave me alone.
Johnny's like getting the socks, Mike throwing my into the middle or whatever. And Johnny's like folding my jersey or I think I obviously kept the jersey. Yeah. Johnny's folding my tracky top or whatever it would be. And Johnny was come and sat beside me and spoke to me about, you know, everyone's been through it. All these guys at various levels have all been through it. And I didn't realise it at the time, but it was probably the greatest pep talk of my career. And Johnny, as I said, he became one of my greatest friends. He's like my father, my favourite uncle, my brother, but he's my best friend. And if ever I've got anything that needs to be shared with anything, I'd pick up the phone and call Johnny. And it's probably down to that moment that we bonded really fully.
Good old Johnny. And how did you dig yourself out then over those 6 months that you brought yourself round to believe?
Honest to God, work hard. Genuinely, and I know everyone would say it, but it was work hard. I remember, as I said, I had to change my game and I started to work hard. I was tracking back better. Yeah. I was...
well, you did become, as a sideline expert, you did become, as you got older, you got more brilliant. You went deeper and deeper, ended up left full. Yes. But you got very good at doing some very basic things that you may not have... You realise how important they were, is my point.
Yeah,
and
they
weren't glorious. People didn't say that's hard. It was hard work. You knew how the game worked.
What I was going to say there, and you spot on with that, Ross. It is, and unless you're a real elite footballer in the game, which I said, there's only a very small percentage. Yeah. Not everybody's Robbie Keane, Damien Duff, Roy Keane, Paul McGrath. You know, outside that, how do you have a career in the game? And all of us players, to have a career, you've got to do all those little basic things properly. You've got to be reliable to the manager. And that's pretty much where it is, I think. If you're reliable, if you can do the job constantly that manager's asking of you, then you stay in the team and you start to realise that you play more games. I always look back when I was a kid, I wanted to play 500 league games. Obviously, I wanted to play for Ireland. I never imagined I'd get as many caps as I did, but I wanted to play 500 league games. And I constantly always said that in my head. And to stay in the side, you realise early in your career that the only way you're going to stay in the team is by doing everything for the team, working hard. And I probably had I always knew I had a decent left foot. So left footers are a rare commodity in the game as it was. So you're going to stay in the side because you're left footed to an extent. And I had certain attributes to myself that was able to sustain a career for myself. And you look back and I was blessed, lucky, so lucky in many ways. But
somebody who has 110 caps, Killer, can't say they're lucky. You had...
Well, yeah, I was. Yeah. I always say, look, and I know, honestly, playing once for Ireland was a blessing, and I genuinely mean that. When you're a kid at 14 and 15, it's a pipe dream, isn't it? 14, you're thinking, I want to play for Ireland, and you tell people I want to play for Ireland. That's all. It's never going to happen. I don't know how many conversations I've had with kids at 12, 13, 14 that have said that to me, and you kind of know you could never kill the dream for the boy or girl, but. No. That's the reality is it's highly unlikely going to happen.
Yeah, the odds are stacked against you, but never shatter somebody's dream that they believe. Because also you never know, but it's going to be tough.
But as I said, I would have been having that conversation with other people and they were probably sniggering behind my back and you know that. Yeah. But I was so desperate, obviously, to play for Ireland. So desperate. It is the pinnacle of my career. Look, you could have given me anything in my career. When I was 16, if you said to me, look, I tell you what, I'll give you a Champions League winners medal or I'll give you one Irish cap. I know which one I would have taken. In a heartbeat, I wouldn't even thought about it. Yeah. I just wanted to play for Ireland. That was the ultimate dream for me. So
and that move to West Brom, a big, huge fee of £1 million at the time. Was that a burden on you to be that regarded the highest fee paid or whatever at the time for West Brom? Was that pressure?
It was. And I think all rolled into one, Rossa, here. I made my Irish debut around that time.
All right.
My senior debut. I was obviously then the first £1 million player to play for West Bromwich Albion. And I'd had that nightmare for Ireland. So I scored on my debut actually against Tranmere for West Brom. Things were going very well. I was called into the Irish squad. Didn't think I was going to play the game. Obviously, I thought I'd just be in the squad. Experience and things like that. Mick picked me straight off the bat for that Iceland game. I had a nightmare. So when I went back to West Brom, I was this £1 million player that had just scored against Tranmere, that had just got up and running with his debut goal. And within that, then I had this nightmare. So I went back to West Brom and I was having a nightmare because my head was all over the place. Yeah. So as I said, it took me till Christmas. It genuinely took me till Christmas. And the pressure of them being that first £1 million player, which, looking back upon, I should have been able to take that. And, obviously the position you're old.
Yeah, but the thing about being mature and elderly, Kevin, is we think if we knew then what we know now, life would be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe I didn't get the proper guidance along the way, because I don't think any young player got guidance in those days. No. It was just, you've got to prove yourself. And if you don't prove yourself, you're going to be gone. Yeah. So it was down to me and what I was going to do. So I always remember from Christmas onwards, we had a managerial change. Ray Harford was my manager that signed me, who was one of the best coaches, if not the best coach I ever worked under. Yeah. And then we had a managerial change around Christmas. And that manager, it was Dennis Smith. He gave me so much confidence. It was along the lines of, look, I see the work you do for the side, but you can do so much more. You have the ability to do so much more for us. So he gave me the confidence then to start flying again. And then by the end of 98 or the summer of 98, I think I was in the under-21 squad again, but I ended up getting, there was a bid from Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough bid £2.5 million for me. So there was a lot of interest then from various teams that were probably lower in Premier League or just been promoted to the Premier League. I think Nottingham Forest had come in around that time as well. They were really keen for me and they'd just been promoted to the Premier League. So they were starting to get interest around me again. So the next season, the 98-99 season, I think I still had those inconsistent spells, but I was then starting to establish myself more in the Irish setup off the back of that.
And the Irish setup, can we mention the unmentionable? And you stuck in with Keane behind you and Michael McCarthy in front of you.
Yeah.
Is that the day Irish football broke down, changed, or the Civil War? How do you remember being as one of the few people who was there?
It changed everything. It did change everything. Yes, it did. After that, when we came back, it was never the same. The fun that we were able to have as a group, I think we all felt pressure as a group. I always remember the first game back after that World Cup. The World Cup, we were probably still in that bubble to an extent, so it didn't affect us as much. But the first game back in Dublin, which we had Russia and Switzerland, the first two games of the next qualification campaign. Russia, we got beat. I think it was 4. We lost out in Russia in Moscow. And then we came back to Dublin to play Switzerland. And the atmosphere around the team was... it was awful. The media attention we were getting wasn't for footballing reasons. It was on Mick McCarthy. The pressure was on Mick. The players were feeling it. And everything felt different. Everything felt entirely different from there. And it was different. It was.
Oh, yeah, I remember in my car with Paul McGrath and Stan phoned. And they hadn't spoken for months. That was the way the world was post that summer.
Here's how to stay alive longer so you can enjoy Boost Mobile's unlimited plan with a price that never goes up. Do not mistake a wasp nest for a piñata. Stay alive and switch now at Boost Mobile. After 30 gigs, customers may experience lower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Mobile unlimited plan.
The hustle doesn't have to hurt. If performance pressure is making it hard to breathe, Grow Therapy helps you navigate stress, set boundaries, and actually feel like yourself again. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/start now to get started. That's growtherapy.com/start now. growtherapy.com/start now. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Yeah, it was. As I said, it changed. The older players, probably, Stan Stan retired obviously at the World Cup, didn't he? 'Cause
Yeah,
Stan had
yeah.
got his 100th cap
Yeah,
during, I think it was the Saudi Arabia game. I wanted to say
Yeah,
for
could be.
Stan's 100th cap. I think it was. It was definitely during those three group games we had. Stan retired, and off the back of that, I don't think you can underestimate that. How much of an influence that was on us, and I don't think it's really been spoken about. But we came for that Russia and Switzerland double header, as I said. We'd had the unbearable attention that was on us during the World Cup, and obviously immediately after, and it was all around Roy and Mick. But we lost we lost Niall Quinn, and we'd lost Steve Staunton. They retired. Those two retirements had a huge effect over that group, because we didn't have those guys to call, and we probably relied on those two players in particular more than we actually realised. So we never had that, that experience within the group. We did have a lot of, as I said before, brilliant players, but maybe we needed a little bit of guidance internally aside of Mick, because we always had it from those guys, especially from Niall, I would say. So to lose those two as well was a huge one for us. And I think that we probably would have been able to manage definitely the Switzerland game a little bit better. I think if we'd have had those two players around for that window, yeah.
Yeah. And tell me, how does somebody get into ice skating at 40 years of age?
Yeah, oh God. I was asked the year before I actually did it, would you do it? And I said, absolutely no. No way I'm doing that. No way in a million years. So anyway, I said to them, look, no chance. Anyway, so it turns out that they asked me the year after again. And what it was, they said to me, look, you've got a deadline. You've got 48 hours to make a decision. Someone's dropped out. We wanted you, obviously, we were interested in you doing it last year for us. Would you do it? And I went away and I thought about it, and I just said, yeah, why not? Let's just do it. Have a bit of crack along the way, a bit of fun, something different. And that's what it was. I didn't feel as though I needed it for anything. I didn't want to plug anything. I didn't
prove a point or anything, no.
Promote myself or anything like that. Everyone that was on that show were trying to promote themselves in a certain way, trying to get up the ladder.
Yeah. It's usually considered a thing to promote your career if it's flagging or more notoriety. Yeah.
Honest to God, it was just solely for a bit of crack. My daughter Isla said to me, "Come on, Dad, you got to do it," and that was pretty much it. That was it. It was just for a bit of fun. And I was working with Off the Ball in Dublin at the time as well. So when I told them about it, needless to say, Jerry Gilroy, Adrian Barry, Nathan Murphy, all those lads were...
They hardly burst out laughing, did they?
They were laughing. You have to do it. What are you even thinking about not doing it? You just got to do it.
Yeah.
So everyone that I'd spoken to said do it. And probably myself, I thought, well, it's a bit of crack, I'll do it. And that was pretty much it, yeah. And that is easily the best decision of my life. Easily the best decision I've ever made, yeah.
And it changed your life, didn't it? In all sorts of ways.
Yeah. Well, now I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
I obviously met my wife, so that made the decision easy. But I can get all romantic, I can get all soppy about everything, but it was perfect timing in my life, perfect timing in every single way. And Brianne changed my life. After I met her, she honestly changed my life. She has been, obviously immense for me in so many different ways. But I knew when I met her, I knew there was something very, very different, very, very different about her. And yeah, here I am, 7 years later or whatever it's going to be.
And you're a Canuck now out there.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm in Canada, freezing cold. It's been minus 30 over. So I don't thank her for that.
But
look,
the summers are beautiful.
Yeah, we have 3 daughters here. We have Gracie 9, Olivia, who just turned 5 last month, and Kiwi, who turns 4 next month. So I've got a lot to be blessed or thankful for, should I say? And I do feel blessed. I feel blessed every day. And as I said, I think even moving here as well, it's helped me probably find myself a lot more as well. Become a lot more confident in who I am as a person. And obviously the question that you were asking at the start about being Irish and everything like that, but being here definitely helps me feel that a lot stronger as well. I do feel being Irish out here a lot stronger.
No, being Irish in North America is very different to being Irish in the UK, is very different to being Irish in Germany. I've tasted them all. And the one in North America is kind of elevated to a different status. You're kind of somebody being Irish in a way. where it's more tougher in the UK in the old days, you know.
What I would say as well, if I say, obviously people ask me here, where am I from? And I do say Ireland.
Yeah.
And when I would have always said that in the past, there would have always been a but.
Yeah.
People don't recognise my accent as much here
correct.
as well.
That's the issue. Where are you from?
So I can get away with it a bit more to an extent as well.
Exactly.
Which is quite funny in that respect. I don't necessarily see it like that or think of it like that. I'm Irish because I'm Irish. But as I say, like even when I'm in Ireland, and people would always say to me, "Oh, where in England are you from?" It's so funny out here. It's not. I'm Ireland, and I mean, you've lived in North America, and another question that always hits you here as well. I'm Irish. Oh, where are you from? Are you from North, or are you from Northern Ireland or Southern Ireland? Are you Catholic or Protestant? First question, like, what a weird question to ask someone, isn't it? Are you Catholic
but it's a very elementary understanding of our history, our country. And a little knowledge can be a very offensive or dangerous thing, Kevin. You know what I mean? I don't mean to be, but to you get grumpy.
I absolutely get it. I get it. I get it totally. But if you think about it logically, it's quite bizarre, isn't it?
It is absolutely.
It is quite bizarre.
Very bizarre.
It's funny, but I love it here, as I said. The winters are very hot. And that's one thing I will say. The winters are extremely hot. I wasn't prepared. First few years was fine, but the last couple we've had, oh my God, it's been incredible. But
in Toronto, where half the city of Montreal is underground, isn't it? Downtown.
Montreal.
They have the city-based shops every underground because it's so cold in the wintertime.
I've never been to Montreal. I arrived here.
Well, it's very French. It's very French. You don't be rushing there.
So that's where I am really on it. So
where are your music? Is there any favourite music you have, Kevin?
I was growing up. Look, and this another thing. It was so funny. Growing up as a boy, my mum always played Irish country. So we'd have Brendan Shine on in the house. We would have I'm trying to think of other of the bands, the big bands from Ireland, the country bands. But anyway, with Brendan Shine, for instance, my mum used to love Johnny Cash. My mum used to love Willie Nelson. My mum used to love country, essentially. And I've started to listen to country music. I used to hate it as a kid. I'd hate it. I started to listen to it. I love Johnny Cash now, probably more than ever. And that was probably an influence on me as a kid. When I hit teenage years, I was probably of the era hugely into Oasis, massively into Oasis. Another obviously the Irish influence in that group, and that maybe helped me be drawn to them as well. But I was an Oasis fan, and I would always think I've got probably an eclectic musical taste. But overall, I would say that I'm probably very much into the scene of the 90s, the Oasis scene. Right. I would probably say that's where I am.
The Gallaghers. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Gallagher, not Gallagher.
Gallagher's. Gallagher's, yeah. And quotes. Is there a quote that travels with you, or are you that way inclined, Kevin?
No, not really. Not really, to be honest with you. As I was saying before, probably my motto in life would have always just been just get on with it. And it's not really a quote as such, but that's how I would have been. I always remember the quotes from Vince Lombardi or whatever would have been pinned on the dressing room walls and things like that. And I honestly never really paid too much attention to them. I was always kind of knew how to get the best out of myself in certain ways. So no, I wouldn't necessarily be a quote man. No, I wouldn't be.
And if I said the following words to you, would you know who might have said it? I had a nice time over Christmas. I watched EastEnders. Blimey, that makes my job look easy. McCarthy said that.
I was just going to say, honest to God, I was going to say, going by the accent there, I would have said you're going on Mick McCarthy. I would never have known he said that.
Yeah, it was like getting sprinters. Yes, he had some great ones over the years.
Yeah, I could. Well, Mick's, geez,
he's out of the box, isn't he?
There's nothing that I could say about Mick McCarthy that's not already been said, but a huge influence on my career, and what a man. What a great man. I couldn't speak highly enough of him. I was fortunate enough during my time. I lived in Dublin for 6 or 7 years after I finished playing. I was working on Virgin Television, and I was fortunate enough to do quite a few shows with Mick, and I was able to get to know him a little bit differently from when he was my coach and manager, you know? Just look, the most honest person that you can imagine. Perfect man, perfect guy, and look, I love him to death, and I always will do,
Good man. And in closing, can I raise a subject you may not want to talk about, Suwon? How have you reconciled that in your penalty against Spain? Or is it something that's still still grates on you?
Well, it's something that always gets mentioned to me, Ross.
I know,
so,
yeah.
Believe it.
I've heard you refuse to kind of go there, so I understand that.
No, I've not. I go there on it. I go there on it. I'm not like that on it, to be honest with you. But again, it was another one that had a huge influence on me on my career. The biggest moment of my life, and I failed. The failings that I've had across my career, as I said before, have made me stronger, made me better. So if you look at it like that, you wouldn't want to change anything, really. That's because it's made me who I am today. But it was devastating at the time. And I can honestly say that because watching World Cups as a kid, watching the team do amazingly well, and especially at Italia 19, seeing that penalty shootout against Romania.
Yeah.
And the influence that it had on me, seeing Paki Bonner make the save, and David O'Leary score the penalty, it had a huge influence on me. And you're part of a penalty shootout in a World Cup with Ireland. Obviously, you want to be mentioned in the breath of O'Leary or Paki Bonner. Of course you do. Yeah. I never really thought about it like that. And it doesn't, honestly, it genuinely doesn't have anything to me from an egotistical point of view. But I would have wanted a different outcome from it. And World Cup time's coming around. I'll be asked to do various things around the World Cup. The last time Ireland played in the World Cup was 2002. Yeah. And of course, you missed the penalty that... it gets brought up to me regularly. So, look, I've got to take it on the chin, and I have taken it on the chin, and I can laugh about it to an extent now. I always think about various things, and I honestly, and I haven't told this story a lot, but I always remember the walk up to that penalty. Bizarrely, I had the most unimaginable thought, the way that I will say it to you. So as I'm walking up, I remember we'd arrived in Korea, 3 or 4 days before that game. I'm not too sure. After we'd beaten Saudi Arabia, our last group game. And a lot of Irish fans meeting us, and they said, "Oh, geez, we read the paper last week, and apparently there was 1 billion people watching Robbie Keane's goal against Germany. Can you believe it? 1 billion people watching Ireland." That came into my mind when I was going up to take that penalty. Honest to God, believe it or not. And if any psychologist, amateur psychologist, will tell you that if you're going to have one thought, it wouldn't be that thought. You know, focus on the process, how you're going to take your penalty, what you've been doing. I would have always thought of myself as a fairly competent penalty taker. But anyway, that thought came into my head. Jesus, 1 billion people watching that Germany game. Jeez, how many people watching this game? That came into my head. So anyway, I missed the penalty, and that's probably the reason why I did miss the penalty. Can you believe, looking back in your life, the young fella from Preston, where he ended up and what he achieved? No, not at all. I really can't. I'm blessed in every single way for many different reasons. I suppose as you get to my age now, look, I'm nearly 50 and it's old. Yeah, exactly. You do contemplate a lot of things in life and certain milestones in your life, don't you? And I do think back to myself as a boy in Preston and think about everything that's gone before me in my life and everything, and the decisions that I've made, the turns that I've taken, the paths that I've gone on, the crossroads that I've been at, which decision I was going to make. And my career and my life, look, I couldn't have wished for it to be any other way. And that's ultimately where I am. I feel very happy. I feel very content in myself and who I am now. And I think, as I say, just going back to the start of it, people might define me of who I am. I might be defined by my accent. I might be defined in a number of different ways. But I can look back at everything with total satisfaction. I really can. Kevin Phillips, thank you very much for joining us on Aran and This today. Ross, thank you so much.
The longer you stay alive, the longer you can enjoy Boost Mobile's unlimited plan with a price that never goes up. So here are some tips. Do not parallel park on a cliff if you want to enjoy an unlimited plan with a price that never goes up. Do not mistake a wasp nest for a piñata if you want to enjoy an unlimited plan with a price that never goes up. Do not microwave a hard-boiled egg if you want to enjoy an unlimited plan with the price that never goes up. Stay alive and enjoy unlimited wireless for $25 a month forever with Boost Mobile. After 30 gigs, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Mobile Unlimited plan. Here's how to stay alive longer so you can enjoy Boost Mobile's unlimited plan with a price that never goes up. Do not mistake a wasp nest for a piñata. Stay alive and switch now at Boost Mobile. After 30 gigs, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Mobile Unlimited plan.
There's one place for the newest drops in wellness and performance, and the biggest sale of the year. It's The Drop by GNC, curating the best of what's new, handpicked by the pros who know what works. And right now, get it all, buy one, get one 50% off during the semi-annual Live Well sale. From crushing workouts to leveling up your nutrition and everything in between, get the best deals on the latest innovations. All the newness is all on sale right now during the Live Well sale on The Drop by GNC.